This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Gee, everybody, what a great show. Elisa Valentino joining me here today. Somebody that I got to know early on. She is a fabulous, fabulous host of one of our very, very top shows here today on the network. Why? Because she has tapped into something that so many y'all out there have experienced and have said, my life is a mess. I'm never going to recover. How am I going to live? How am I going to even be in any vibration than what I'm in now? Sad, depressed, lonely, disappointed. And you go on and on and on, right? We've all been there, ladies. Although this may not be a show for all women, I'm saying we got to talk to you, though, today. Today, get ready for high vibe. You're going to hear what that means. Divorce and hitting restart with my very special guest today. But before we do that, I need to tell you a little bit about her. I'm going to tell you a lot about her. I'm going to read the bio, but I want to tell you what my experience has been in working with this amazing woman months ago when she said yes to hitting the restart button for herself. You see, you can't have a show or a brand that's called hitting the restart button and not do it. See, there's a disconnect in the world. There's just something that doesn't align. Like I can't talk about what it's like for live streaming video and podcasting if I didn't do this. 20th anniversary, and it's important in 20 years to talk about this topic today because within a 20-year period, I was that person she's going to talk about, and so was she. So what is it about her? Holistic behavior practitioner, certified life and health strategist, empowerment coach, light worker, award-winning blogger, speaker. She trains people, but she is the coach and the mentor of the mentors. So that's what she does. She helps people elevate, rise up, create that positive mindset, create a space for self-empowerment. And it doesn't matter what you've been through, but what she has put her seal of approval on is the following. How do you hold a high vibe going through divorce, separation, and everything else you want to call it? It doesn't matter to us whether you're saying, yeah, wasn't really married, but you broke up. Okay, so let's just start with that. Oh, but I'm part of the LGBTQ community. It doesn't matter. Anybody that has been in the situation that we're about to talk about, chances are you still feel the pain. But the question that we're going to ask you today is, do you want to not feel that pain anymore? Do you want to step in, hitting the restart button? But even more than that, do you want to get in the high vibe? So here's what I want you to know. I have had the honor and the pleasure of working with her as she has gone through the creation of something so powerful, something she's so excited about, and what? At the same time, going through her own journey. Whew. Elisa.
Hello. Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here. What an intro. My goodness.
But you see, I've taken this journey with you. So, yeah. I know where we were, but it didn't stop you from saying yes to doing the show, did it?
No.
No.
Never.
You're going to get us caught up today, aren't you? But more importantly, the statistics are out. Let's just be very clear. The statistics are out now about divorce and about, can I just say divorce, breakups, whatever you want to call them.
Yes, exactly.
To me, they're just divorce. Whether you've been married officially or not, there's something that happens, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's really about being able to, we were talking before a little bit before the show. It's about being able to kind of be honest about where you are, because that's the hardest part. And whenever you go through any kind of breakup, especially a situation where maybe your lives are really, entangled together, like a marriage or a long-term living situation, your whole world is thrown upside down. And it doesn't matter whether you wanted it or you didn't want it, right? Like I wanted my divorce, but never expected that every single aspect of my life was going to get affected, from where I live, what I felt, my identity, how I was going to move forward out of this situation. So for anybody out there that is either contemplating in the midst of or has just come through it, like Dr. Pat said, the pain is there. But what I hope we can focus on this show, more importantly, is the fear and overwhelm, because those are the things that, if we can get a handle on them, you can really start to hit that restart button and move forward.
Yes. And we're going to talk. And by the way, I just want to make sure everybody knows you are the host of the High Vibe Life. So
Yes.
we want to talk about that for a minute. I want to just take a pause and let people know that you came on and created this powerful, powerful show. Yes, of course, it's a podcast, but it's also live streaming video, right? It's
Right.
something that we take out the people can watch you. They can watch you with your guests. You started this show not necessarily in the most bestest place in your life. But that did not stop you. And I'm not going to talk about this because things are personal, right? But I got to take the journey and watch you knock them down one after the other. You say, I am not going there. I am not doing this. I am standing up. Whatever that looks like. How'd you do it? How'd you do it?
Well, so just to kind of backtrack and put in perspective, I went through a very, very contentious divorce back between 2015 and 2017. And I would say that I hit the lowest point possible in my life. It was horrible. My ex-husband really just turned on me. He was very narcissistic, mean, divisive. He was vicious. And he was sort of like the Energizer Bunny in his desire to really like destroy and hurt me. So there was a lot behind that. For me, my situation got really ugly because I went from being this 15-year stay-at-home mom. Yes, I had had a career before I got married, but then I got into the zone of being a mom, raising my children, and I had a great, materially, I had a great life. We lived in the suburbs. We had a Hampton house. I mean, I traveled all the time. And when I thought, mutually decided to get divorced, I thought it was going to be a fairly easy transition. And what happened was my whole world got turned upside down. We were cut off without money for 3 months. I was trying to raise my two, then 9 and 11-year-old. He didn't want to co-parent. The kids, eventually he had alienated them. So one of my children he hasn't seen in like 7 years. So, I mean, it was just everything. I had to sell a house. I had to empty the house. I had to figure out where to move. And all of this was while he was doing this, like really bullying and harassing stuff. So to this day, and I think when we met, I thought I was on sort of the downswing of it. But once again, here it was, everything getting litigious again because of the fact that, he doesn't like to, do what he's supposed to do. So I was in I wouldn't say as low as the first time when I was going through it, but I was in a tough spot when we met. And I just said, I went through this in 2017. I had this amazing spiritual awakening. But, the thing that I want to kind of impress is that what happens in these situations is that it kind of ebbs and flows. And the key is that when it ebbs and flows, you're moving upward each time. So even if you have a little dip, you're still moving up. And I think that was what I realized, that, this is my life. I worked way too hard over the last 5 years to let this last little bout bother me. And I just pushed forward. I really relied on my faith in working with my energy and knowing that if I could keep myself out of those low vibrational emotions like fear and overwhelm and anger, and reframe it into abundance and gratitude and love, it was, I was going to start attracting those things. And I did. I developed a show that I love, and I just expanded my own abundance, in my own life.
Yeah. And, that's what we're talking about today. I mean, we've got a lot to talk about today, but, we're talking about what it is that happens in our lives. Let's just have a little fun for a minute. A couple of things I want to just tell people. I always get asked, why do you think there's a need for something? Like if I do a show with somebody or we're done talking early, like, why is there a need? So I just want to make it very clear why there's a need for what you do. You ready for this? This is the funnest. Not really fun, but just get ready for it. So we now have latest statistics. So I want to just come out of the gate for all you all out there. There's a statistic that I'm going to wait to talk about, and it's the most cruelest of all of them. It's the cruelest. But let's just get it off the table. The United States is not leading the group with the highest crude divorce rate. So, hello, we're not. Russia is. Okay, there you go. So, Russia has beat us. But we're fourth. We're fourth. And when you think about this, you'll understand why. Elisa, you have created what you've created. So think about this, folks. When you look at the end of the pandemic, people didn't really get divorced during the pandemic. They didn't get married either. But when you look at this, you start to see at 2021 the curve go up again. But here's the thing that I want people to know about why you want to run and not walk to work with this amazing coach. You really do need to run. One, if you still remember the last words your partner said to you, and you keep playing that same song from 10 years ago, you just need to go get some help. And the reason I say that, I don't have a deep memory, but I do remember the breakup words. And I think I can laugh about this now because I think they're the silliest things that anybody could say, but I bought it. So when usually you get the boss, somebody says, "Oh, honey, I don't love you anymore." Yeah, whatever they say. But this one, oh, I'm called to be alone. Okay, I'm going to put you on a rocket and I'm going to send you to Jupiter because then you're really going to be alone. But here's what we're dealing with. Almost 50% of all marriages in the United States will end up in divorce or separation. 41% of all first marriages will end up in divorce. 60% of second marriages will end up in divorce. And 73% of all third marriages, Brad Pitt, will end up in divorce.
They gave it the old college try, three strikes.
You gotta get it. But these numbers don't really talk about the impact of that. But here, let's get the real impact of this. This is why I know you're passionate about what you're doing. Every 42 seconds, there's one divorce in America. So by the time we're doing this show, you do the math on how many divorces have happened between the beginning of this show, 42 seconds. So 42 times, let's just do simple. 42 times 42 in this show, 42 divorces in America. It's 86 divorces, right? So we're talking about 86 divorces per hour, 2,046 divorces per day, 14,364 divorces per week. And are you ready for the phenomena of why my friend here is doing what she's doing? 7,046, 971 divorces per year. Every six. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's enough of the statistics because that's a lot of pain. Tell us about that.
Well, I think if we want to shortcut this, I don't really think, as crazy as this sounds, divorce is the problem. I think what the problem is, is that people don't know as much about themselves as they need to, and they're not in touch enough with their authentic self to understand what they need, with or without another person. If you can, fulfill your own needs and know what you're all about, clearly you're going to have the right radar for attracting the person that's going to be best suited for you. So when I work with people, right, I'm working with them when they're going through one of the worst things they could, barring losing a loved one or a child, right? Divorce is really up there with the loss and the pain. And the first step, because my program is broken into 3 steps, the very first step is about realignment with yourself. So we're not necessarily, I mean, in the perfect world, right, everything goes perfect, but we're not necessarily going to be talking about the divorce, the other person. We're going to be talking about you and what is it about you? What are your goals? How do you see yourself? What do you want in your life? How do you see yourself with your children, your daily routines, what you're doing? And I really believe that, we probably all have a story. I know I have my story. When we get married, are we asking ourselves the most important questions? Are people around us, parents, friends, support groups, are they asking us the right questions? Why do you love being around this person? What makes you excited about, being together? What do you have in common? What are those goals you both have? So we kind of get into the excitement, the kind of honeymoon stage, and everything's nice. But then, there comes a point where, for some reason, and this is what I see in my clients, they've lost themselves somehow. They've either had to put on some kind of mask to survive the relationship, or they've just adapted. And again, we're not vilifying either person in the relationship, because it probably went both, for both people.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. And then, because today, for the most part, versus say 50, 80 years ago, there's more ability for people to be socioeconomically okay to get divorced, right? Years ago, it was just financially not, people aren't able to do it. So now usually both people work, they have jobs. I'm not saying they're, doing amazing, but they can survive in a one income home. So as a result of that, I think that's why you see people saying, okay, you know what, I've had it. But and I'm not a proponent for or against divorce, because it really is a very personal thing about what you need, what you want. But I think, at least for the second time around or the third time around, when I work with people, it's really about grounding and finding out what it is that kind of turns you on, what makes you happy, and how to control your own energy. Because let's face it, no matter what relationship you're in, there's always going to be triggers and issues. But are you grounded enough within yourself to not let that escalate, or not let yourself get to the point where there's resentment and hatred? And hopefully, second, maybe there is no third time around, but second time around, you're able to really harness what it is you want, and then put that energy out, right? Because likes attract like, and attract in. And we, I also work on some of those like subconscious beliefs that we don't even know are sending out the radar to attract the people that are wrong for us.
Yeah. So all y'all out there, if you find yourself listening to the song of all songs, there are 2 songs of all songs in a 50-year generation that I will tell you. If you find yourself turning on Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You, more than once a week, call Elisa, please. If you are turning on Lady Antebellum, if you are finding yourself, look, what we're trying to say is there's a way to live life regardless of what you're going through from a high vibrational perspective. Isn't that why you became a holistic divorce and life transition coach?
Yeah, I actually, like I told you, when I kind of went through my own spiritual awakening in 2017, I was so desperate to do 2 things. I wanted to kind of quell my anxiety and fear, and I just wanted to find answers, to just feel calm and normal. And so I just threw myself into all the kind of self-help books. I mean, from Dr. Joe Dispenza to Wayne Dyer. I got into a lot of the, people like philosophers like Rumi and Saint Germain, and I was just taking in all this. And then that led me down another rabbit hole of quantum physics. And that's where I just became fascinated with this idea of the laws of the universe, namely the law of vibration and the law of attraction, and how our consciousness has so much control over this. Excuse me. So when I started to go down that sort of rabbit hole, that's when my life started to change. And that's when I started noticing, it's like a muscle. We all have negative things happen to us. It's very easy to kind of allow ourselves to stay in that state of, lack and the state of being a victim, right? That's the number one thing I see with people going through divorce. And they may come by it very honestly, but the point is you don't want to stay there. And that's what changed my entire life, because I said, if this is something I could show people and work with people, right? Like, do we get over breakups? Do we get over divorce? Yeah, eventually we do. We somehow figure out how to move on. But why not shortcut it? Why not help people shortcut it and embrace the power that they have within? Because I'm not giving clients anything. I'm just helping to draw out what's already there that they're just not in touch with, and maybe have some new techniques that they can utilize. So that's what really worked for me. When I started embracing being in this higher level of vibration, that's when everything in my life started to shift.
Yeah, and I want to tell everybody, I want to make sure you know how to get a hold and schedule your strategy call, because the first thing out of the gate that we don't think to do is ask for help. I'm just saying, ladies, it is one of the hardest things that we have a hard time doing, because first of all, we feel very ashamed about what's going on. There's so many layers of this, which I am not the expert out. But you can go to I just want to be sure, hitting the restart button.com, and you can schedule that call. But I also want to make you aware of when we're talking, you and I, Elisa, we're talking, Elisa, look, we're talking about, not just talking about, you've created a program. I want everybody to know the following: whether or not they hire you one-on-one, there are certain things that you're doing. For example, there is something called divorce coaching. Your attorney may not tell you that. Attorneys and may be saying to you, I can handle it. Well, okay, but how about the emotional? So there's this incredible program you've created. It's a 12-week, it's 3-step program. We're going to talk about the 3 steps on this show, but people can get that. Now, they can go to your website, of course, and they can schedule this call. What else would you like them to know before we take a short break?
I want to just kind of say one thing. We're saying ladies, but believe it or not, 50% of my practice is men.
Yeah, no, ladies and men,
And
ladies and gentlemen.
And each gender, whether depending on what their role was, they're all going through pain and they all need the help. So I think just what I want to say is that in addition, the most important thing to realize is that when you're going through this, you want to think in terms of a team of people and not just think about your lawyer as the only person who can help you. And we can talk more about that, but it's so important to have that source around you, because the people closest to you, your mom, your dad, your sister, they're not objective and they're angry and hurt with you. You need someone who can help ground you and help you have clarity so that you can really move forward.
Yeah. And I want to really talk to all of you listening today, because I know most of you out there, you know somebody. And so please pay this forward. Please pass this on, because this is a very difficult journey to take alone. And we're trying to tell you, you don't have to. We're going to take a short break. And yes, I just got a message from someone. They wanted me to mention something else. We're not going to talk about it during this show, but I am going to mention it. For those of you out there, I think one of the more difficult or cruelest or whatever you want to call it, put it in your own category, statistics that I did not mention. And of course I will. It's the statistics that are higher than any other right now. And that was my situation, by the way. Just want you to know, I had an illness that they could not figure out how to fix at the time. And so if you are in that situation, please reach out for help because you're already in a situation that you're dealing with. But 21% of seriously ill women are divorced compared to 3% of seriously ill men. And I wanted to mention that, but it doesn't mean that men are not. The point that I want to make is if you're with a sick spouse, it's a tough time. Don't wait, get help because you also do personal coaching. So let's just spend a moment on that before we go to break. Divorce, you're known for. But that's not the only thing you do. You understand the full spectrum of what goes on with people, right?
Yeah. So I would say that in spite of the fact that I'm known as divorce coach, 50%, again, we're back to the 50%, half my practice is divorce and the other half is what I would call life transition, difficult events. That could be anything from
Job loss.
emptiness to losing a spouse, to death, to going through a health crisis. It's usually at a time when people just are looking for a different answer and they want to figure out how to maybe shift the direction of their life. So it's life transition is kind of the title that it falls under. And yes, I work with a lot of people. Retirement, that's another one. I work with a number of people that are going through retirement and all the different challenges that go with that.
Well, I want to say to everybody, when we come back, we're going to talk about high vibe. And I want to tell you why. If you have not read the book, Power versus Force, or you haven't looked at Dr. Hawkins' scale, you're going to want to do it because you see, this is the essence of what this amazing coach has created. And I'm telling you, when we come back and we start to talk about high vibe, what we're talking about is what Hawkins pointed out and pointed out so carefully in a very clear scale that it doesn't matter where you are on the scale, heading upwards to that high vibe life. It's not an illusion. It's not. It's a proposition. And my very special guest today will help you with that. Let's take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Pat.
And I'm Elisa Valentino.
Yes, we are. And we're talking about, look, Elisa, I love what you've created. And I don't know how to say this any different. We're going to talk about exactly what it is you're doing here. But I do know this. Some of the most creative things have come out of pain. Mm-hmm. You and I are sitting here because of that in a lot of ways. So, we could point to Van Gogh or we could point to other people like people, right? Creative things come out of pain. But what comes out of it is the solution. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's talk about high vibrational living and how you have infused every aspect of your coaching practice to get people up on that scale.
So, Dr. Pat, what I have is I sort of have these 4 pillars of vibe, and they are weaved in to my entire coaching program, whether it's for divorce or just, basic life transition issues that people are going through. And vibe actually stands for visualize inner brilliance and empowerment. So the 4 pillars are to be the architect of your own mindset. The second is manage stress for mind, body, and spiritual wellness. The third is take charge of controlling your personal vibration. And the fourth is to take action by setting goals and being accountable. So from those pillars, if you will, that's weaved into and sort of the basis on which my 3-step programs are all built around.
And it's so important. I want to say this for people because I was reviewing this and, I was reminded of this. And it's, believe it or not, how powerful those pillars are For example, I started to use your pillars for getting ready for a championship tournament.
Wow.
Now, that we could talk about on another show, but to help people feel better about themselves and their lives in a very difficult situation, I want to talk about some of the other situations. My research is all about job loss, downsizing, job insecurity, 10 years of it, won awards. We're clear of the impact, but we're not clear of the solution. And I think that's where you're coming in, because you talked about life transitions. And in the world we're living in now, we came out of 2009 and 2010 with more people in pain than last time people were in that pain was like in the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then we never talked about it again. And they carried that pain through. That pain hit their children. Those children now are entering the workforce, and now they're experiencing similar pain, job loss, insecurity, so forth. So, as a life transition coach and a holistic divorce coach, it doesn't really matter to you the situation. What matters is that you have a way to help people rise up. Is that true or not?
It is. It's very true. I think really, if you kind of boil it all down, I think one of the things we might be lacking a little bit in our society in general is where we focus our attention. So what I mean by that is that there's so much negativity, right? For instance, when I start my sessions, before we talk about anything, the first question is, what are we celebrating this week? Because I want them to start thinking that I can have positive thoughts before I have negative thoughts. If we look at our own lives, right, most times we don't even take into consideration all that we have to be grateful for. I mean, if there's food on the table, if you have shelter, if you have health, if you have legs that you can walk and run. I mean, just we can sit here for the next 2 hours just naming things that we all have to be grateful for. And I think, and gratitude is one of those emotions, one of those energies that really helps us to raise our vibration very, very quickly and raise our frequency. Because think about it, if you have been given something, you're in a state of gratitude, right? Someone gives you a gift. Well, that same emotion, populates in our body and in our mind when we think about what we're grateful for. So in a sense, I think that's part of the problem. I think in spite of all the bad that could happen, rather than always, you acknowledge pain, of course, you want to acknowledge it, but the more you think about something, the more it wires your brain. So why think about it? Why not think about the positive things? Because the more you think about those positive things, you're going to send out energy that's going to bring more towards you. And that's pretty much how I work with people. And I see the difference. I would say by session 4, I can already start to see the shift in my clients because of the way they're putting the positive before the negative.
Yeah. I want to just talk to this point directly. A year ago, almost to the day, I was on an airplane to go back to New Jersey because I had an intuitive hit that my best friend was way sick, more, what's the word? Sicker than she really was. When I arrived back in New Jersey, that was true. And I can't even talk about it. It was so scary for me to see my best friend, Linda, who has always been the pillar of strength. She is the protector, protects her family, protected me in my craziness, and to see her so vulnerable. And so when you say celebrating, what I'm really struck by, and I think it's today that I'm most struck by it, because the 19th, I was in such a calling everybody, what should I give her? What should we do? But when I started to see her be able to sit up, and today, tromping down to my door to remind me to respond to an email, I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah.
And I think we have to take those moments, even in the toughest of transitions of our lives.
100%, because as we said, if we're talking about vibe and vibration and frequency, you can't wait for things to happen, right? You can't be reactive, wait for the good to happen to be great. You have to bring the positive towards you. And the only way to do that is to create that vibration where you're resonating on that. Now, in your instance, obviously you were upset, you were scared, you were frightened, but I'm sure just to be grateful that you were healthy and strong to be there for her,
Yes. Oh,
just to
yeah.
be grateful that she was able to be in a home, in a house, that she was safe physically. So there's always even through divorce, there's always something to be grateful for. Are your children healthy? Are you eating? Are you making a delicious meal that night? Do you have a friend that you had a cup of coffee with? They sound like small things, but little hinges move big doors. These little things add up. And the hard times are the times when we most need to shift that energy into as hard as it is, because that's the only way we're going to start
Yeah.
to attract it more and more and more.
And let's talk to this, because you see, I can hear your passion, but the audience may not know. But sometimes they hear my passion, and I always get an email back and say, "Why are you so passionate about that, Pat? Why are you so passionate about that?" And I respond to all the emails I get. If people call, I call them back. But there's a passion in your voice. What is it that fuels that passion for you?
I just love to see people thriving. I have this imaginary thought all the time that, if and when I get to that point, I want to drive around the neighborhood and see people that are limping, or, that are struggling, and just have a big van and throw them in and bring them to just a happy place where we could talk and they could be, told how wonderful they are. Because I just love the idea of seeing that transformation in people. I love when, not that I love when someone comes to me in pain or overwhelm or frenetic. I don't love it, but I see that. And then after we start to bring them down a little bit, we start to talk about how they got this and they're going to have control over it, and they need to incorporate some techniques, and whether it's breathing, whether it's getting into a gratitude mood. I
Yeah.
see the change, and no one should suffer. I mean, we're not put on this earth to suffer. We have things happen to us, but the whole point of being here is to grow, and for our spiritual development. So I'm just so passionate about seeing people
Yeah.
thrive.
Yeah. I had a situation last week. I play a sport, and I want to give kudos out to the Volunteers of America. They've taken over the Carl Gibson Center up in Everett. I just need to give them a big fat shout out of what they're doing. But, most clubs where you have a sport or fitness or whatever you want to call it, they have certain restrictions on people. So, for example, I got away with playing in a full cast when I was younger. But the restrictions sometimes in spaces like this, especially to even participate in a sport, what they do is they put you in a category and they say, you got to go over here to this group to play. Well, not here. Last week, I had the honor and the privilege of sitting with an amazing man and woman and their little doggy, and Howard Grossman, who runs the club, my personal coach, Mr. It turned 87. Uh, and I'm talking about table tennis. But the gentleman came in a wheelchair. He had two replacement legs. And nobody said to him, you can't play here. You see, you want to talk about high vibe. The woman he was with, the little doggy, the whole thing in a place that didn't turn the door and turn him away. So I'm 100% with you. Now, of course, I'm talking about a sport, and he's going to get coaching from Howard.
Mhm.
And you have those moments where you have to stop. And Linda and I both stopped. We were there last Saturday, and we both stopped at a moment, and you could just see the expression on our face. And I want to ask you about this, because high vibrational living, or the high vibe life, isn't just about the words. Isn't it also about what you exude? We didn't say very much, but you could really see in all of our faces how proud we were to be part of an organization that, and I'm going to use this strong word, allowed people from all walks of life to step into the arena and thrive. And that you don't see always. And I'm very grateful that I'm associated with it. I could belong to any table tennis club in the state of Washington. But I want to be around people that are like that. How important is who we put ourselves around, especially during transitional times?
Well, it's kind of an interesting question, because I think there's two things. The first thing is that you need to try to be aware and raise your own frequency. Meaning, if you're trying to be in that state of gratitude, if you're trying to, say, I'm not going to give in to fear, it's a negative, powerless place to be. I'm going to believe that everything's going to be okay. I think, amazingly, people that have that same energy are going to just start showing up. It's just when you're resonating on the same frequency, you're just going to, likes attract likes. But I also think intellectually, we need to think about it. If someone in your life is a downer or very toxic to you, or they don't have a good thing to say, or they're constantly complaining, you probably consciously need to say, that's not really going to be a good place for me, because I'm trying to transition to something new and get through this difficult time. I don't need someone that highlights more difficulty and more drama. So I think part of it is the inner work that puts out and exudes, as you said, the energy. And the other is to consciously make a decision, which is hard sometimes, because when we're going through a transition and we start to change, it can be an additional pain, because you realize, you know what, I don't fit in with these people anymore, or they don't fit in with me. And, I think a lot of people go through that, especially after a breakup. You start to realize who your real friends are,
Oh my gosh,
who's
that
going
we
to
could
be
do
there
a
for you.
whole show about that. We could do a whole
Absolutely.
show about that. I
Yep.
mean, I mean, that has to be, I think when I think back at one of the greatest hardships in my breakup. Yeah, the breakup was hard, but I lost a friend that I thought was my friend. I lost a friend that I worked with back at AT&T, who moved out here, who literally I stayed with the summer. She was one of the reasons I moved out here, to have that kind of person.
Yeah.
And when that happened, and that was a conscious choice, because what happens is your friends decide and they choose, right?
But whatever their reason, it's so funny. I feel like you're telling my story. I had a friend from the time I was 22. We worked together for
Yep.
like over 12 years,
Yep.
probably like 16 years. He came with me to get my wedding dress. He was at my wedding. And because my ex-husband was handling a lawsuit for him, when we were going through our breakup, he actually signed a document saying that he met me through my ex-husband.
And this is part of, and
It's
the reason
mind-boggling.
it's mind boggling. And the reason I'm bringing it up is for those of you out there that are listening to the show. And again, I stand to be corrected, both men and women, because you work with everybody, men, women, same sex marriages, although you will be pleased that same sex marriages are half the divorce rate. But it doesn't matter. Even if
Right.
it's not the official divorce, a breakup is hard. And it's hard for a lot of people. And this one thing, this is a crusher. This is a heart crusher. This is the thing you don't get help and coaching with. Because if you lose those people you thought were your friends, now you don't have anybody to really talk with.
Yeah.
See, isn't this part of what you do when you're talking about vibe coaching, the 4 pillars? Isn't this part of how you help people? Because it isn't just about you. It may be you, the kids, but what you and I just shared right there, that's gut wrenching, right? It was gut wrenching for me. It took me a really long time.
Yeah, and then it you feel angry, like you have all this other negative feelings that come on. Well, so what I'd like to say is that, so what is high vibe divorce? It's really about thriving through divorce rather than surviving. So with what I do and the way I approach it, my program, I basically provide holistic support in 3 key areas. So it's the empathetic support for developing a well-grounded, high vibrational state of mind, right, to manage stress and manifest your desired outcomes. The second is that to provide clarity about the divorce process itself so that you can manage expectations and cultivate self-empowerment through this process. And the third is to help put together a strategic life vision plan for post-separation / divorce. Those three things are what sort of we're working towards in the program.
And I think I've got a title for one of the shows that you can do, From Friend to Frenemy, whatever that's called. I mean, that is an important show to take on for you because it doesn't get talked about. But what you just shared with people, a lot of times we can get through, let's call it the direct people involved
Right,
in a
right.
divorce. But it is the ripple effect around it that just lingers. And we don't get help about it.
And that's why I said at the beginning of, the beginning of the show, that's why breakups affect every single aspect of your life. It's not just like I lost my job, which is traumatic in and of itself, but you go home, your home is intact, your family, when you go through divorce, generally, unless you're in business with the job is the only thing that doesn't get affected. You know what I'm saying? Everything else does. Where you live, what your habits are, what your routines are, how often you see your children. You lose sometimes an entire other half of your family. So the impact of that really can put you in such an isolated state, and that's the last thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like you want to crawl under the covers. I mean, Lord knows I was there, but you have to realize it's like a muscle. You have to just keep doing it. You have to get out of that comfort zone and get the help so somebody can help enter into that very painful place that you're in and help pull you out.
Yeah. What I like to say about this, and let's talk about it because spirituality is also part of your foundational piece. What I talk about a lot is that God is really smarter than a fifth grader. And I say that in honoring. And the reason I say that is because here I was doing this show. And I'm telling you, 6 months after I started this, I just did a talk with Dr. Darvish, who's got a great book. You've got to interview her. And here I am doing this talk, and I was remembering the pain I was in. And if it wasn't for the wrong phone number and starting the show, Crust Busting, and then Dr. Pat, and then the network, and the network was started in the middle of the depression and in the middle of my separation, right? This kept me going. How do you help people have some form of pivot in finding a purpose beyond the marriage because we so identify with it?
Yeah, I don't know that I help them find the pivot. I think what happens is that by helping them to feel empowered,
Mm,
helping them to learn kindness, right? How many mean, horrible things do we say to ourselves too, like when we're going through this? By teaching them how to have self appreciation, to have kindness. I won't allow people to go off on themselves. It's just not. You could
yeah.
talk about what you did, but you are a good person.
Yeah.
I think the pivot starts to happen because the shift is there. It's like going down a road. All you have to do is go 5 feet in a different direction, and you're going to end up in a completely different destination. So I think it's about making the person aware of how valuable they are and how they view themselves in a positive light.
Mm,
And then, it's like anything else. When you kind of stop and you just live in the present just a little bit, things present themselves, right? Like
yeah.
that was divine intervention with the wrong phone call. And these things happen because I really believe, me personally, my belief is that if something's going to end, God, spirit, source, it's not to leave you in this dark hole. It's to
Mm-hmm.
open up a new door for you to go through. But you
Mm,
have to just get through that very
mm.
difficult in between limbo state before you can actually see that blossom in front of you.
Now, I want to take a minute and then I have something personal to say to you, but I want to take a minute. You have done something so people that contact you that have listened to the show, they're going to get, what is it, 20%, I believe, off of any of your coaching pro. Can you please clarify that for me?
Yes. So if anybody contacts me and they mention the Dr. Pat show, they're going to automatically get 20% off of any of the divorce coaching programs. I offer a 12-week and I also offer a 6-week. And then of course there's some free things. If they go to my website, they can download my free 7-point blueprint for living a high vibe life. And lastly, if you email me at hittingtherestart@gmail.com, you'll get a free PDF of my 3-step divorce accelerator program, which is just a condensed, fun, if we could use that word, way of what this program's all about.
And I want to say something in closing, and you don't know I'm going to say this. I had the honor of working with you several months ago to get the show ready to launch. And I just want to make sure they can listen to your show. Tell folks how they listen to your show, what time it's on.
So the High Vibe show is on the first and third Monday of the month at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern.
And I want to do this. I want to acknowledge you in the following way. Having worked with you did something to shift something in me. And I can't describe it, but you know what it is. I got to work with you on the model, to watch what you created, to follow you on the website, to see your show, to listen to your show. But this is something you don't know that happened. What happened for me is my heart opened to my first love. And I repaired some things with them. And to this day, I work side by side, and together we both are developing a different and better relationship. And my heart would not have been open to that. So I wanted to say that because people don't understand what your work does beyond getting through divorce. It gives you a second chance at love. And that I needed you to know, because you're the only person that I've worked with in the past year on this thing. And I follow you, and I follow your pillars, and I follow your show, and I follow what you say. And I found myself in the middle of a place where I said, oh my gosh, the possibility of living the rest of my life with this person is a reality now.
Wow. That
And I
is
want
so
to thank you for
beautiful.
that.
That is so beautiful. And I need to thank you too, because I was in a little bit of a low point. We actually had to delay the show back in September to
Yeah.
January. And the support that you gave me to just take the time to get through that little bump was incredible. And honestly, you were able to help me articulate what I was feeling and what I wanted to express in such an amazing way, even with the title of the show being the High Vibe show. So it's just been an amazing journey and such a wonderful partnership.
Yeah. I want you all to know that. I mean, please, if you know anyone that's struggling, if you are struggling, if you don't even know what you don't know about your struggle, please reach out. Again, you can do it very simply. And I just want to make sure go to hittingtherestartbutton.com. Everybody, listen, hittingtherestartbutton.com. Emily, make sure you have this in here in the show, in the video. Thank you so much for all of the people's hearts that you're helping open again. Thank you. And for those of you out there, you should know this, because of Lisa. I'm reaching back out to Juice Newton because I have an incredible question for Juice. She plays 2 of my favorite songs. One is a beautiful love song. It's called The Sweetest Thing. And I want to know, how did this same amazing artist create a song called The Sweetest Thing and follow it up with Rake It To Me Gently? Thank you, Juice Newton, for giving us both ends of the spectrum. Thank you for Elisa for helping people with both of those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pat.
Thank you all for tuning us in and turning us on. And boy, if you listen to those songs, just don't have any alcohol around. We'll see you next time.